How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about the Toronto Defiant, since they recently qualified for the Stage 1 playoffs, and in fact, they were the third team to do this, and I find this really interesting and very exciting. I'm not sure about all of you watching this video right now, but I personally did not foresee the Toronto Defiant being this good in the first stage of the Overwatch League. I thought they'd be a solid team and maybe be like the 7 or 8 seed in the Stage 1 playoffs at best, but they've surpassed all of my expectations, and as of right now, if the playoffs started today, they'd be the 3 seed. A 5-2 record with a +5 map differential isn't too shabby for an Overwatch League expansion team, and in fact, you could probably argue that's actually really impressive. I know that some people will argue that even though they're 5-2, they're not that good just because they really didn't defeat anyone super amazing. They basically just defeated tier 2 and tier 3 teams, and yeah, that makes sense. Their schedule hasn't been as hard as some of the other Overwatch League teams out there, but one thing you cannot deny about this team, no matter how good or bad you think they are, is that they are clutch. This Toronto squad had a bit of a rocky start after going 2-2 through their first 4 games, but after that, when they really needed to step up the most, they stepped up to the plate and succeeded. They were able to not just win, but dominate their final 3 games of the year. They were able to defeat the Boston Uprising and the Chengdu Hunters 3-1, and I think I can speak for most people when I say that both of these teams have surpassed people's expectations with how competitive they've been. And in their final game of the stage, the one that would help them clinch a playoff spot if they won it, they stepped up big time and they dominated yet again. Toronto was able to 3-0 the Hangzhou Spark in their final game of the stage. And yeah, I know the Spark haven't looked quite as good as people thought they would so far. They've had a lot of ups and downs where they've looked pretty good during the games they've won, but very average during the games they've lost. But we cannot forget the fact that this team technically still had a chance to make the playoffs. They were in the hunt still. Even though they were 3-3, if they won this game, 4-3 could potentially put you into the Stage 1 playoffs. You'd probably be a 7 or 8 seed, but you'd still be there regardless. It's not like the Defiant were facing off against a team that was already eliminated from playoff contention. They were going up against another playoff hopeful team. The Spark needed to win this game just as much, but the Defiant ruined any sort of hope they had of making the playoffs by stomping them, and doing so allowed them to clinch a playoff berth. Congrats to the Toronto Defiant. This is well deserved. You guys started off the year 2-2, and you needed to step up big time if you wanted to make a playoff push, and you did it. This team as a unit has looked solid and pretty consistent overall, but there are a few players in particular that I do think deserve a lot of the credit. Those players are Envy, Neko, and Ivy. Envy is the team captain of the Toronto Defiant, and he showed that. He's looked like a true leader on that diva role, and he's also been very flexible, showing off a pretty decent Sombra and even playing some Pharah as well. Envy's always been a pretty good diva player, so it's not a surprise to see him performing very well just like he did in Season 1 on that hero, but the fact that he's able to flex onto some of these other DPS heroes now, not just play tanks, that is super impressive stuff, and he's definitely a big-time contributor to this team's success. Neko's been a huge help for this team as well. The team went 2-1 without him during that 3-game suspension he was serving due to boosting, but you gotta feel like this team's just better with him than they are without him. I think that much is a given. He's a really good Zenyatta player. Obviously, he's not the best of the best Jonek level or anything like that, but he's always been a very consistent fragger on that hero. And just look at how much the Toronto Defiant have accomplished since Neko's come into the lineup. They've won 3 of their last 4 games, and the only loss they had was against the NYXL, and there's no shame in that. They're arguably the best team in the league right now. The final player that I think deserves a lot of the credit as to why the Defiant are as good as they are right now is Ivy. The man has been showing exactly why a lot of people believe he has superstar level potential. His Zarya has been absolutely incredible, and in fact, I personally think he's been one of the better Zaryas in the league so far. He's been pumping out consistent amounts of damage every single game, which means he charges up grab pretty often. As a result of him doing all of this damage every single game, Ivy's been carrying his team through a lot of team fights. Ivy, Neko, and Envy have looked really good for this team. They're definitely the standout players in my opinion, but overall, as I said before, everyone's been doing their job. They've all looked pretty good. I think you really have to like where your team's at if you're a Toronto fan. There's a good chance they'll end up being the 3, 4, or 5 seed in the Stage 1 playoffs, which means that your chances of winning at least one playoff game are pretty high. Things will get kind of rough if they have to run into the Vancouver Titans or the NYXL though, just because they're both in a league of their own in my opinion. They're easily the 2 best teams in the GOATS meta at the moment, so I don't think the Defiant stand much of a chance of beating either of them. Maybe you can take a map or 2 off of one of them, but that's just about it. I don't foresee the Defiant defeating either of those teams. But hey, I think I can speak for most Toronto Defiant fans when I say that even though it would suck to lose the Stage 1 playoffs, I think you'd be pretty satisfied with a semifinals finish. And with that being said, that's pretty much everything I've got for you guys today. The Toronto Defiant have looked pretty impressive so far, and I'm very happy about it. I'm glad to see all these expansion teams doing really well in the first stage of the Overwatch League. So thank you all so much for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy, then be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new so you don't miss out on any of my future content. Make sure to let me know what you think of the Toronto Defiant down in the comment section, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.